So my question is, do you think, like, for the trans genocide argument to be valid, trans people have to be okay with advocating violence against Republican legislators?
My issue with that type of Republican rhetoric or conservative rhetoric is that when you preach that type of stuff, what happens is the people that are listening to you are going to be left feeling like the only option they have is violence. That's it. Like, because everything else in society is and falling apart, and the lawmakers and everybody else have failed you, and people are already enacting violence on you in the form of like a great replacement. Therefore, the only thing we have left is violence.
Hey, I'm wondering why you think it's so difficult to legislate like doxing. Is there like a technical reason or a specific reason?
I mean, what would it look like? What is the behavior you think that should be illegal?
Hi.
What's up, loser?
Okay, so did you just call me loser?
Nope. Did you get sick or are you not sick?
No, I'm not sick. I'm like the only one who didn't get sick.
Nice job. Wow. What a champion.
Yeah, it's because I lived in a college town for 2 years and built some immunity, you know?
Nice. Yeah, that's what Republicans think. You worked out your immune system. Good job.
Okay. So I'm going to start by making my position really clear, because I feel like once I start arguing about this, people are going to start accusing me of having beliefs I don't believe.
Nice.
So I'm going to start with this. I don't think a trans genocide is happening. I don't know if in the future, I don't think in the future it will be like that either, because I'm, filled with hopium and think that Republicans are losing the cultural war really badly. And unless if they change tactics, it's not going to get any better for them.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, when I was seeing when you're talking about like Brento Box and the video, I'm not sure if this is position, but
Brento Box? Wait, what?
Bento? I don't remember his name. I thought it was that.
Loner Box?
Loner Box. Oh, I got confused with somebody who streamed a long time ago. Okay, my bad.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Loner
fine.
Box.
All good. Go ahead.
So my question is, do you think, like, for the trans genocide argument to be valid, trans people have to be okay with advocating violence against Republican legislators?
Not necessarily, but if they thought there was an ongoing trans genocide, that seems like it would be a natural extension of like their beliefs.
Okay, so I just want to be extra clear here, because then we might just be on the same page and then there's nothing to talk about. So a person can believe there's a trans genocide happening, but that doesn't mean that that it has to follow. It usually can follow, but it's not like it has to, you know?
I would say it almost has to follow. If you really believe there's an ongoing genocide, it seems like that necessitates some type of violent response. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure about that. Because I think there's a lot of things in my mind, so give me a second. Okay, the reason why I don't like that, or I think like back to like Nazi Germany, sorry to bring up this example again, like it's been brought up so much, but basically I think, people would advocate for violence against Nazis, right? Absolutely. Especially in situations where they were in immediate danger, but that doesn't mean that they'd advocate for en masse violence. And the reason why I would say that is because, once, what is it? Because I feel like, okay, like there were a lot of other avenues people took than just straight up killing all the Nazis after they took back power, or once they were done taking back power, basically, right?
Well, sure, the violence might not be like a mass like counter genocide, but like it's going to necessitate some sort of violent response if there's literally already a genocide happening, I would say.
Yeah, but you can say that there's a difference between, advocating for a violence response in situations where the violence is imminent, right? So, for example,
or
a trans person,
right?
Yeah, like a trans person being like forcibly taken to some sort of conservation, conservation? Concentration camp or whatever. That there can be a difference between that violence or advocating for that violence and then advocating for violence when it comes to legislators.
Maybe say that again.
So I could totally see a trans person who thinks a trans genocide is going on being like, okay, yeah, like there are cases where we should enact violence. For example, if somebody's going to take me to a concentration camp, but that doesn't necessarily mean it follows that we should enact violence on anti-trans legislators.
I don't know. I mean, I think you could.
Yeah, you could, but it's not necessarily
I mean, they're
necessary, I
literally
guess.
genociding you. Well, here's a question. Let's say that Nazi Germany was happening, and let's say it was more democratic than it was, and there were like lawmakers that were voting and everything on behalf of like continuing like your genocide. Like concentration camps exist, death camps are starting to roll about. Like, would you have moral like authority to enact violence on those legislators?
I think you'd have moral authority to enact violence on people doing the concentration camps.
But not the lawmakers that are like voting in parliament and empowering.
Well,
Yeah.
this becomes a very, what is it? It becomes very muddy here. And maybe that's why it's like hard for me to separate. Because the way I'm thinking about it is that I think there could be an argument for even certain legislators. For example, if in Nazi Germany, let's say this like top ranking official, maybe I don't know if this is a go Bebels, I might be getting confused.
Goebbels?
Goebbels, maybe that's it. Or some other like really top ranking official that if they die, that can like completely change the trajectory of all the legislation being passed or significantly alter it, right?
Yeah, but I don't think the thing is that like I don't think that's how this works. So like my issue, so like when we talk about like the Great Replacement and like conservative propaganda, like what is the big issue that you have with that type of stuff?
The big issue when I have with that type of stuff is what they're trying to eventually lead to, right?
My issue with that type of Republican rhetoric or conservative rhetoric is that when you preach that type of stuff, what happens is the people that are listening to you are going to be left feeling like the only option they have is violence. That's it. Like, because everything else in society is and falling apart, and the lawmakers and everybody else have failed you, and people are already enacting violence on you in the form of like a Great Replacement. Therefore, the only thing we have left is violence. That's why I don't like the genocide discourse. I think a really good comparison to this is, did you follow any of the stuff that happened in Canada with the native stuff?
Very little.
So people said that there was an ongoing genocide in Canada related to a bunch of stories that were not true. And what people did was they started burning down churches in Canada. And it was something like at least 10 were completely destroyed. I think there's a list of like over 70 or 80 that were like vandalized. Some of the vandalization was light, but there were like a decent number of churches that were just completely burned to the fucking ground. And I think a lot of that violence just directly came from people thinking like, well, there's like an ongoing genocide in Canada. The church is one of the perpetrators of this. Therefore, we're going to fight against the church. It seems like a natural extension of that type of propaganda.
No, I agree with you. I just think it's kind of dangerous, and maybe this isn't what you were saying, and maybe this is just an argument I have to have with what's Box. But I feel like the argument that, if you think a genocide is happening, therefore you should be okay with violence being enacted is kind of dangerous. And the reason why I think that like argumentation isn't necessarily fair is because it kind of opens the door to, if for example, I can't pronounce the name, Uyghurs. Sorry, if the Uyghurs were being genocided, then they should be okay with like killing everybody in the CCP, right?
I don't know if anybody would necessarily oppose that, right? Like, didn't we literally have people cheering on the death of Alexander Dugin's daughter in Russia just because she was like a state media agent? She wasn't even a politician. I don't know where you stood on that, but
yeah, I don't know enough about that situation to comment on it. What I'm saying is that if people decided that if people do think that there are other ways to better handle like the situation than direct violence, or that direct violence should only be used in certain circumstances, but as like en masse as a whole, like dealing with like, let's say the Republican Party as a whole, that's not the best strategy to take, or that's a dangerous strategy to take, or this is going to sound really random and out of left field. Have you heard about like the banality of evil?
No.
Okay, so it's this concept that evil actions or evil things that happen aren't necessarily like this villain in a cloak, right? Or in the shadows. It happens a lot because day to day people are okay with bad things being passed, or, throwing things out there that doesn't really affect them, but has really bad consequences for other people, right? So it's like what really, or I guess it's mostly used when it comes to Nazi Germany, that evil there, quotation marks, could be found in just the day-to-day people who are allowing horrible shit to happen, or passing horrible legislation without, or I guess pushing forward for horrible legislation without really thinking it through. And when it comes to people like that, I think if you think a trans genocide is happening, the main question becomes, okay, do you think it's happening because there are these like straight up, thoroughly, like really bad people who just want trans people gone from this earth, right? Which in that case, maybe there's an argument to be made there for violence. But if you think the vast majority of people in the Republican legislature who are passing this under ignorance, under not really caring or thinking through how it's affecting trans people, under the misguided idea that they're actually helping children when they're really just hurting them, then I feel like the answer for a lot of people who believe a trans genocide is happening is not necessarily violence.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think I generally agree. But I would say that, oh my God, I actually deleted my tanks. I would say that then at this point, then like the phrase genocide is just wholly like inappropriate.
Yeah.
Like if we're saying that like a genocide is happening accidentally because people just think it's for the betterment of somebody else and they're just wrong on something, like the term is just so wildly inappropriate at that point.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I agree.
Wait, I'll fight to the death over this. It is absolutely the case. If you're calling like the current stuff for trans people trans genocide, you've no basis in reality to say that. Right?
Well, no, I don't think what's currently happening is trans genocide. I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
But the reason why I was pushing back on what you said was because it kind of, I guess it goes back to like intent versus consequence. So I think a lot about people who claim that they're not racist, right? But then all their actions reflect racism or hurt Black people, right? Then it becomes a certain point where it's like, okay, well, does your intent really matter here?
I think when it comes to genocide, I think, yeah, it starts to matter. The idea that there's like an unintentional genocide of people happening, I think is pretty silly. And I don't think that when people say genocide, that's not generally what they're trying to convey.
No, I think maybe I shouldn't speak on behalf of people who think this because I don't know what's going on in their minds, so I might be completely off basis. They could be arguing that there are some people who are malevolent actors, and there's just a lot of people who are, but this doesn't really sound like congruent with the clips I've seen, but whatever, that there's some people who are really malevolent actors, and then a lot of people who are just very like ignorant or not thinking twice or doing it for political clout or whatever. Which in that case, like I could, but I just feel like now I have to defend myself because I don't think a genocide is happening because I don't think we like got into that point there.
Well, I'm saying that if you don't think a genocide is happening, like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of hoops that we can jump through where like a genocide could be happening, but it's not because the people are intentionally evil, and there might be like some weird other way that they're viewing it. That's like that's it's possible, but that's so many hoops to jump through. It would be silly to even attempt to do that, right?
Yeah, I guess the only argument that I really want to get across that I think we both agree on, but now I'm not sure, so I'll just say it one more time just to be sure, is that even if you think a genocide is happening, it doesn't put you in the position where you have to advocate for violence en masse to Republican legislators. If you don't think that's going to curb the genocide, if you don't think that's
I don't think I agree. I think it's just like a genocide is literally the worst thing you can do to a group of people. Like that is the worst thing. Like there's nothing that goes above that. So if we're talking about a group of people that are complicit in creating the worst thing that can happen to a group of people, the absolute worst thing, how can some form of violence not be a reasonable response?
Okay. Now it's changing.
Okay.
When I say because there's two different distinguishing factors here. I'm using the phrase en masse. You use the phrase, what did you just say? You said like some level of violence, right? So I think there's a very important distinguishing factor to be made there, because some level of violence can be applicable, right? Somebody taking you to a concentration camp is the easiest example of a level of violence that would be okay. En masse is just, okay, anybody associated with this or anybody who can potentially, keep this continuing should die, right? And
okay, well, what do you think? So then let's say that you were back in Nazi Germany, okay? And let's say that there was let's say you take a normal Jewish person on the street and they see like a Nazi walking down the street and they want to kill that Nazi because they have the opportunity to. Would it be a morally condemnable action for them to kill that Nazi?
I think it's like kind of, okay, because then this justifies all these people, like if we were in Nazi Germany, it would justify like Jewish people basically reverse genociding Germans, because like the vast majority of Germans were Nazis. So like that's a conclusion that we get to if we say that they're morally justified in doing that.
Well, no, we should be careful with reverse genocide, because the actions of the Jewish people would be defensive and the actions of the Nazis would be aggressive. So the Jewish answer, we can say from the Jewish side, it's self-defense. You can't make the same excuse on the German side. I don't think we call it a reverse genocide, no?
No, if we, so you're saying, okay, if a Jewish person was under Nazi Germany, they would have basically they would be morally okay with like killing every Nazi they see if they could get away with it.
Yeah, or at the very least, like people that were part of like the SS or like Nazi politicians. At the very least, maybe not an average citizen, but like at the very least, like a politician or something.
Okay, I don't think I necessarily disagree with you, but I think the question becomes, I think it's because, it's Nazi Germany. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of varied options there, right? And maybe this is just a result of us living in a democracy that these different intuitions come to light.
Well, what about when settlers came over for natives and they started to kill Native Americans and stuff? Would any random Native American that saw like a settler with a gun walking by have a right to kill them?
I don't think so. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If your group of people is being entirely exterminated by a group of foreign invaders, yeah, I think they would have.
But I guess my argument is that I guess not every foreign invader or maybe it is in terms of like Native Americans, right?
Maybe not every single one is doing it, but they're all complicit in it. They're all part of that structure,
yeah, but then the question becomes, I'm not saying that violence is always off the table or not at the table at all. I'm saying that it seems like there are other avenues. Obviously, I don't think this could be the case in Nazi Germany, really. But I think in the United States, there's other avenues that we can take before we get there.
Well, sure, and I would agree with you there. But the idea that there are other avenues available seems to imply that there's not an ongoing genocide.
So you think for a genocide to happen, there has to be basically no other avenues available. And as long as there's some sort of other avenue available, it's not a genocide?
I mean, it sounds a little surprising or hard to imagine that there could be a genocide that could be stopped with like enough posts on Twitter or enough like positive like social media sentiment or like even legislators saying, hey, stop genociding somebody, right? Like
no, I don't think it's that
conceivable.
simple.
It's possible, but like it seems pretty fantastic to me.
Oh, no, I agree with you there. I think, and again, this might just be a result of me having the implicit underneath bias. That's like, we're not currently in a genocide yet either. But it seems to me like as long as like we live in a democracy, there are ways to, there are other avenues to try to curb this legislation that's killing trans people.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Before straight up murdering Republican
I agree with you,
legislators.
but the problem is these other people don't agree with you. They're making fun of that, right? Demon Mama on her stream was laughing like, oh, are we just going to ask our lawmakers to stop genociding us, LOL? Like, that was her point, so.
Okay, so you're saying that these people don't think that there's other avenues when it comes to trying to stop trans violence right now?
That's what she says, but yeah, I mean, maybe if you push comes to shove, maybe she wouldn't believe that, but that's what she says.
Okay. Because, yeah, then that goes against my argument. Because I'm like, yeah, you could think this is happening, but we live in a very, I don't want to say special, but we live in a country where luckily there's other avenues we can take before going to that extremity. And that's how you can hold these two views at the same time. But if you think that there's no way to, fight against the current, like elect other people, get other people to power, blah, 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 then I guess violence is your only other option. Because what else? What else is there? There isn't anything else. If that's what you think. Okay.
True.
Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to throw a different opinion out there into the mix, but it kind of goes for nothing if that's the opinion other people are having.
Yeah, well, you can always go fight with them about it. Everybody wants to see somebody else jump into the fray because it's such fruitful conversations to have with them. So
maybe. Okay. I hope you have a nice rest of stream.
Yep. Have fun. Be careful.
Hey, I'm wondering why you think it's so difficult to legislate like doxing. Is there like a technical reason or a specific reason?
I mean, what would it look like? What is the behavior you think that should be illegal?
I feel like, are you familiar with like culpable negligence and like how that's required for a manslaughter or like second degree charge?
I can guess by the words, but
go for it.
My guess is culpable negligence probably means that you knew that by virtue of being careless in some level of action that you're going to be culpable for something that happens as a result of your carelessness. So for instance, if I get in a car and I'm driving around at like 150 miles an hour and it's wet and I get into a slip and slide and I crash and kill somebody, that would be like some kind of like criminal negligence that I'd be culpable for because I know operating a vehicle what's going to happen and I know that like there's a chance that shit like that. So that'd be my guess.
Right. So how is it decided that you're guilty of that?
I don't know the legal test for it, but I imagine it's going to be some test of like,
it's the reasonableness standard.
Yeah, is it reasonable
exactly.
that you knew that the actions you would do could bring about some type of harm or whatever, right?
Were the actions actually likely to cause some injury or death? Mm-hmm. And is it reasonable for a person to have assumed that this action would have reached those ends? And did the person do it?
Yeah.
Right. So in California, we do have a state law against like cybercrime harassment. Mm-hmm. Which is basically like you don't need to have all these details figured out in law. It can simply be, was the information posted with the intent? We do task judges and juries of being mind readers to some extent, right? This is like the difference between murder 1, 2, and 3, where 3 is applicable. Like, was the information posted? Did it carry a credible threat that could reasonably result in some harassment or some activity that like a person would be reasonable in feeling a level of fear over, and was that the intent of the person posting the information?
So the issue is Kiwi Farms is a really good example. So they say that they collect information just for the purposes of documenting it, right? And there's probably some people on that website that actually believe that. They do that. They collect it because it's funny to like know where people live and to have access to that information and like, yeah, boom, that's it. And if somebody were to go out and do something bad with it, well, I mean, they didn't intend for that to happen. Like, how would you prosecute somebody like that?
Well, you would just have to, you would bring the charge up and then it would be up to a judge or a jury to decide if they're lying or if what the intent really was. Like for it to be brought to that point, a person's going to plead not guilty anyway. And then the trial becomes, about, is this person telling the truth or not? Do I believe this person? That's how we decide a lot of cases, right?
Yeah, I guess. What about in the case of like publishing somebody's information in the media then?
Yeah, it's a similar thing. Like you would, if you were to bring a case, if there was to be like a civil case of me versus you, I think you posted this with the intent of making me scared for my life and the information. I'm reasonable in assuming that, or I'm reasonable in feeling that way based on the information that was posted. It carried a credible threat of people harassing me or something like that. Then you would have to prove that. Right? Or you would have to have your lawyer convince a group of people that that's the case. And that's what the trial would be about. Was like I feel like, no, I ain't no big city lawyer. And I feel like we should be being chaperoned by PSCO or some other, legal Andy in your community or something like that. Cause I'm not a lawyer. But like the case that you would bring against a journalist for publishing your private information would probably hinge on like, was it necessary to publish this? Right? Like what does publishing my personal information, if we can establish that publishing that information was likely to cause some harassment for me and that I can convince people that you did so with the intention of causing, that harassment, or at least like with the intention of making me fear harassment or, you know, making me fear my safety or something like that, then we would move to like, was it necessary for the purpose of journalism or something like that? And if we can prove that it was not necessary, it would probably go really far in establishing that.
Fuck, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
It doesn't seem that hard.
No, it seems really hard. This is so much harder than like a social media policy, because like social media has like so much flexibility in terms of how they want to regulate their TOS. But we're talking about making it actually illegal for me to post something online about another person, right? Which in the United States, I don't know.
No.
Oh, go ahead.
It would be illegal for you to post something that carries a credible threat to somebody's safety or their like emotional health or whatever, with the intention of doing it. It wouldn't be illegal to post the information.
But it's not a direct call to violence. It's just posting the information of somebody.
Again, it's posting it with the intention of causing some emotional distress or causing a person to fear for their safety.
Careful, right? Because emotional distress, I don't care. I don't want emotional distress to be illegal, right? But now some type of threat or harm, maybe. Or no, if it's some type of threat, probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you don't think we should ever have anything that legislates, like, you don't think we should ever legislate against harassment?
No, no way. Not make it illegal to harass somebody like that, no. In real life, I think like restraining orders and everything are okay. Like we can do that, but I don't know. I'd be interested.
What about like hate crimes?
What about them?
Well, isn't that just a form of harassment?
No.
Or must it carry some implicit threat to violence?
I don't think that there are I don't think there are hate crimes. I think that hate is like an aggravating factor. Hate is like an extra thing you can throw on top of a crime, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like an amplifier. That's my basic understanding anyway, but...
Mm-hmm. Like I can't like, if I call someone the N-word, that's not a crime. But if I beat somebody up and call them the N-word, then my assault becomes like a hate crime or something, right? It has to be connected to something else, I think. It's an amplifier. Yeah, you said it. I don't know why I just repeated what you just said. Bring Pisco in here, argue with him, see what he thinks.
Yeah, I would like to. Anyway. Is he here? Let me see if I can ping him in chat. Nope, I'll DM him and then we'll come back.
Go do it. That's what I want to hear.
How? I didn't follow. I was busy all weekend. Can you tell me how the canvassing event went?
Oh, because you were trying to make your way to Georgia, but you got lost, right? That's okay. It happens. I went fine, I thought.
Is there a meme there, or you just expected me to be there or something?
You were supposed to be there.
I really wanted to be there. I was working a production. Okay.
I was sick all weekend, which was fucking annoying. And now everybody else is sick, so fuck them all.
Okay, well, tell me, come on, like, it has to have been pretty good. How did it compare to the very first Georgia canvassing event?
No, it's honestly, the problem is I don't have much to tell you because it all went incredibly smoothly.
That's fucking awesome. That's what I want to hear then.
Yeah, it went well. It went super well. Damn, chill. Calm the fuck down. Damn.
Fuck! Monday's the first day!
It's not, though. You're American, bro. You can't get away with saying some wild shit like that, okay? Monday is not the first day.
It seems like you were... I overheard you talking about a lot of problems that happened with the first one, with people not really wanting to go out and do the work. Was that really a major problem, or just a thing that kind of happened here and there and you noticed it?
It was a major problem. But this time, everybody did a phenomenal job, so...
That's fucking godlike.
Yeah, it was cool.
Were there some lessons you learned to like help achieve that, or just do you think complaining about it on your stream like helped people?
Not on my end. I think Christian and Matt just did a really, really, really good job.
Fucking godlike, dude.
Yeah, they are.
And yet you came home so cranky.
I know, I was sick. What do you expect?
Fair enough. I'm fucking, I'm floored. It's 50 grand euro money. That's really crazy.
50? Wait. Oh yeah, that was kind of annoying, but. No, I dyed my hair blue so I can fundraise for the next one. I won't feel bad, so fuck them.
All right, take it easy.
Be careful, babe.